Chapter 4002. Tang Yuhui first returned to the Zhou family and told Zhou Ji about his decision. He worked for Zhou Ji and would definitely need some time to clear his sister's name. He told Zhou Ji so that he wouldn't delay his work. Zhou Ji knew the truth from Su Chongxing, so he was not surprised by Tang Yuhui's actions. Instead, he felt that he had not misjudged Tang Yuhui. He was a righteous person who could distinguish right from wrong. On the other hand, he did not like Tang Si and the other two, who were spending Tang Guo's money but looked down on her. Zhou Ji asked, "Yuhui, what are you going to do about this?" He thought highly of Tang Yuhui. Now wherever he went he would bring him along. Not only was Tang Yuhui good at fighting, but he was also smart and could help him solve many problems. "I want to publish it in the newspaper in the name of my sister's brother and tell everyone the truth behind this." Tang Yuhui's eyes were bright. As for what kind of comments the family would encounter after seeing their attitude, he did not care. His sister had been slandered by them for so many years. He felt terrible and forced his sister to sever their relationship in the newspaper. He felt that it was not worth it. Even if his sister severed their relationship, she was still his sister. This was a fact that could not be changed. It was also good to sever their relationship. Otherwise, they would look down on his sister and drag her down. They would say things that were worse than pigs and dogs to anger her. Zhou Ji did not have any objections to this. He thought of Su Chongxing and said, "Perhaps you can go to Su Chongxing. He will be happy to do this." From their previous conversation, Su Chongxing should be a fan of Tang Guo. Su Chongxing probably did not notice how indignant he was when he talked about family Tang people and those scholars who spouted shit. Su Chongxing. Tang Yuhui was a little confused because he did not know this person at all. Zhou Ji patiently explained again. After knowing that Su Chongxing was the editor-in-chief of a newspaper and the only newspaper in High City that had not published articles scolding his sister, Tang Yuhui's impression of him instantly improved. He thought that he should go to Su Chongxing. Tang Yuhui could not wait for a moment. He did not even have lunch and hurriedly went to find Su Chongxing. Su Chongxing's eyes lit up when he learned of Tang Yuhui's intentions. "To tell you the truth, I once investigated the matter behind Miss Tang's back and even wrote an article to clear her name. However, she refused to publish it, probably because she was afraid that her family would be involved in this storm." "You don't have to think about that. I'm her big brother. I can't bear to see her being talked about like that." Tang Yuhui felt that his sister was too soft-hearted and valued the people in the family too much. He really hoped that his eldest sister would be a little colder to her family so that she wouldn't get hurt. If it were any other matter, he would comply with the other party's wishes, but not this one. He had to think of a way to let the world know how much his eldest sister had suffered all these years. What nonsense about being heartless. It was all bullshit. If they liked to scold, then they could go and scold the younger ones in the family for being ingrates. They were full of benevolence, righteousness, and morality. Whatever new ideas they had read, they had all gone to the dogs' stomachs. What they were doing, he thought, was not a reform of the mind, but putting the old lady's shroud over their swine brains. Of course, Su Chongxing hoped for this outcome. When he heard that Tang Yuhui was willing to take any responsibility, he felt relieved and wrote the article boldly. Tang Yuhui watched him write from the side and frowned. From time to time he would instruct him to add a few sentences. He did not forget to say, "Remember to be more eye-catching when the time comes. Put my name on it." Chapter 4003. You must let everyone know that it was Tang Yao's big brother who helped her clear her name. Su Chongxing quickly nodded. "Don't worry, Mr. Tang. I will use the most eye-catching title. I guarantee that everyone will not be able to take their eyes off it. This is what I do. I know what they like to read." Tang Yuhui was very satisfied. This time he even asked his boss, Zhou Ji, for an advance of a month's salary. He was prepared to use all of it to clear his sister's name. He gave the money to Su Chongxing and patted him on the shoulder. "Do your job well. I heard that your newspaper company did not publish any articles that scolded my sister?" Tang Yuhui admired this person. "Because you did not publish these articles, your newspaper company's sales seem to be very bad recently. This is just a temporary problem." Su Chongxing shook his head. "Our newspaper company guarantees quality and quantity. In addition to selling the latest divination every day, we also publish some excellent works. We still buy what we want. I don't publish those strange articles. First, I know the truth behind Miss Tang. Second, I actually like her songs. Third, I think those articles are nonsense. Everyone knows new things. If they are published in our newspaper, it will pollute the page. He really did not set up a newspaper company to publish divination. There were relatively few divination sections. I just took a look. The quality of your newspaper is really good. In the past, Tang Yuhui did not read these articles. Although he could read, he did not need to read. But now he would slowly learn to read all the news from the outside world so that he could understand the latest news. In the afternoon, under Tang Yuhui's supervision, Su Chongxing improved the article that cleared Tang Gui's name. The name must be eye-catching. Before leaving, Tang Yuhui reminded him. Let the children who sell newspapers publicize it. Su Chongxing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He thought that the article that he had completed today did not need any more publicity. Anyone who saw it would hate the family Tang people. He was also very happy that Miss Tang had such a good big brother behind her. If it were not for Tang Yuhui, she would have been scolded for a long time. Tang Yuhui could not sleep the whole night. He kept looking forward to tomorrow's morning paper. Su Chongxing couldn't sleep either. After holding it in for so long, he finally got a big one. He was still a little excited. As usual, before going to bed, Tang Yushu and Tang Yuxing, who were beaten up by Tang Yuhui, were particularly dissatisfied with Tang Yuhui's sudden beating. I wonder where Big Brother's heart has gone to. It's been like this since we were young. Aren't we used to it? In the future, let's not mention that person in front of him. Anyway, she's no longer a member of the family. She was the one who severed ties with us. In the end, Big Brother blamed us for everything. Go to sleep. You still have class tomorrow. Tang Gui slept better. Through the messages sent to her by the system, she knew what Tang Yuhui had done in a hurry. She was a little touched. Now she was finally sure that if it hadn't been for that accident, Tang Yuhui would have been able to get up and lead the original owner to live a good life. Even if the family Tang dragged her down, as long as Tang Yuhui was there, the original owner would have a good life. At dawn, Tang Yuhui went out with the two pandas, waiting for Su Chongxing's morning paper to be printed. After more than half an hour, he woke up. Chapter 4004. Hearing Tang Yuhui leave in a hurry, he shook his head. Give me a copy of the morning paper later. Yes, young master. Extra. Brother Tang Gui, the singer from Xianlisi, has cleared her name in the newspaper. Extra. There's a different truth behind the singer from Xianlisi, Tang Gui. If you want to know the truth, come and buy a copy of the newspaper. Tang Yuhui sat outside the newspaper office with a copy of the newspaper and stared at it. He was very satisfied when he heard the children holding the newspaper and shouting the most exciting news of the day. He read the article several times and felt that it was about time. Holding the newspaper, he walked from one street to another and found that many people were staring at the newspaper and discussing it. Even the snack sellers were shocked by the news about Tang Gui. He was satisfied. Even so, he felt that it wasn't enough. He simply found someone to help him spread the news and let them spread the news everywhere. Therefore, the entire morning, the people of Sea City were discussing the article that couldn't be more detailed. Even those who couldn't read knew all the content of the article and didn't know what to say for a while. Tang Yushu was used to buying newspapers every day, and he stared at Su Chongxing's newspaper office. Su Chongxing was right. The quality of his newspaper was very good, especially with the living signboard of the mountain people. Every time there was an article about the mountain people, those who liked her would have a copy of the newspaper. At first, Tang Yushu didn't think much of it until he got the newspaper and saw the most eye-catching content. He was stunned. When he finished reading all the content, his face turned pale. The title was eye-catching. It was written that Tang Yuhui had cleared Tang Gui's name. He was Tang Gui's elder brother, so of course he wouldn't lie. The content was all true. Tang Yushu couldn't refute it even if he wanted to. Before Tang Yushu could react, the classmates who met him all looked at him strangely. The bolder ones even walked over and asked Tang Yushu, Tang Yushu, is what the newspaper said true? Your life and tuition fees are all paid by your elder sister? Your elder sister went to Xianlisi to let you go to school? Tang Yushu's face turned pale and red as if someone had pulled off his fig leaf. He turned around and walked away, ignoring those people. Could he say no? Once he said no, that biased big brother of his would definitely come to school and confront him face to face. They were all blood-related siblings. Big brother only had eyes for her. He did not expect that for her sake his big brother would disregard their reputation and allow someone to publish that humiliating article. He could already imagine how many people would point fingers at them in the future. Even if the students didn't say anything to his face, they would definitely talk about it behind his back. Yes, the students who saw the newspaper were all very surprised. They looked down on Tangua's status because they felt that she had abandoned herself. If they had known from the beginning that Tangua had gone to Enrich to support her younger siblings' studies and support her family, even if they looked down on her identity, they would never have written an article to scold her. They would not even give her a good face in front of her and talk about her faults. Now that she thought about it carefully, she didn't do anything wrong. Her only mistake was entering Enrich. Moreover, she had gone to Enrich for the sake of her younger siblings. On the other hand, Tang Si and the other two who ate and spent Tangua's money and spent Tangua's tuition fees, even dared to gossip about her and despise her for being a disgrace. This really shouldn't have happened. Chapter 4005. Tang Yuxing and Tang Yushu had similar reactions. Because of this matter, they didn't dare to go out. Tang Si couldn't stand being pointed at by people around her. Now that she was out on the street, she heard many people talking about how ungrateful they were. The three of them went home in a sorry state and hid in the house, not daring to go out. Although many people didn't know them, they were very upset when they heard those words. Wu Feng didn't look good either. She also heard those words when she went out today. There was no place in Haicheng that didn't talk about this matter. Fortunately, they weren't famous people, otherwise they would have been recognized long ago. How could Big Brother do this? Tang Si's eyes were red and she was about to cry. Why didn't he think about us when he did this? How are we going to face him now? She gave us money to spend willingly. We didn't ask for it. Tang Si was only 15 years old and hadn't fully developed her values. She didn't know that she shouldn't have said such things. If others heard it, it would definitely cause criticism. Tang Yushu and Tang Yuxing understood a little. After all, they were almost 10 years old and knew a little more. They didn't say anything bad about Tangua. Instead they asked Wu Feng, "Mom, is Big Brother back? What can't a family discuss? Does he have to make it known to everyone?" That's right. Big Brother has always been biased towards her. Now for her sake he doesn't care about our reputation. How are we going to face people in school in the future? Wu Feng also spat. That jinx. Even after severing ties, she won't let this family have peace. Mom, who are you calling a jinx? Tang Yui pushed the door open and came in. Seeing that they didn't reflect on themselves at all, they instead scolded Tangua. You guys, do you think it's embarrassing? Tang Yui didn't know how to scold Wu Feng, but these little ones didn't need to be polite. You heard people say that you're heartless and ungrateful. You feel bad, right? Yes, you know it's not good. Big sister was scolded for so long and had all kinds of articles written about her. Can you imagine what kind of suffering she's going through? Her family doesn't understand and a group of people is pointing fingers at her. Why didn't you think of that? He's suffering too. You said I'm biased, so I'm biased. Big sister deserves my bias. What qualifications do the few of you have for me to be biased? Can he write a few words or draw a few birds? If it weren't for eldest sister, would you have the opportunity to sit in the classroom and learn these things? What you've done before is ungrateful. Tangsi, you're 15 this year. You're always talking about how you don't care about money and how you're thinking about innovation. You've never cried before. Big sis went to Enrich to do odd jobs when she was young and she started singing in Enrich when she was 15. If it wasn't for Big sis, would you have such a good life? It's good enough that we can fill our stomachs. The two of you are only 3 years younger than eldest sister. Both of you are grown men. Other than writing 2 words and drawing 2 birds, what else can you do? Eldest sister has always said that we can't let you guys suffer. If I had known that you guys would become like this, I would have really sent you guys to the docks to experience what hard work is. I can already write my own articles and get paid. Tang Yushu couldn't help but retort. Tang Yuxing added, I can also sell my paintings for a living. Tang Yuhui sneered and couldn't help but tug at their clothes. Fine, you guys are capable. You've all grown up. Other than the money I give to my parents, I won't give a single cent to the family. Since the two of you can support this family, then it shouldn't be too much to help your own sister in the village. Big sis and I can support the family when we're not even 10 years old. You guys are already 17 years old, so it shouldn't be a problem to support the family. Chapter 4006. Boss. Wu Feng shouted. Do you really want to turn this family upside down for that star of death? Mom, that's what I don't understand the most. How can you take eldest sister's money while disdaining her for being a disgrace? Wu Feng's face turned a little red. Tang Yuhui didn't want to say any more. He pointed at them and said, if you guys are tough, then don't come looking for me and my sister. Let me see what you guys can do. With that, he left. He was going to find eldest sister. After all, she definitely knew about the article being published in the newspaper. He had to go and coax her so she wouldn't get angry and ignore him. He had already thought of an excuse, saying that he couldn't let the younger ones continue like this, or they would grow up crooked. They were all grown up and could support themselves. This was a trial they had to go through. After pondering over what to say, Tang Yuhui rushed to Tangua's villa without stopping. Tangua had indeed read the newspaper. Su Chongxing's writing was very sharp, and every sentence could strike a person's soul and leave a deep impression. Well written. Tangua was hiding in her room. After all, she was a big sister who cared about her younger siblings, so she couldn't reveal her true self. She couldn't let this image crumble. If it crumbled, public opinion would be against her. In a while, she would still feel very uncomfortable about this matter. And Hua was standing at the door. After the young miss got the newspaper, she locked herself in her room. He was very worried, and the young miss even cancelled today's classes. Hearing that Tang Yuhui had come, and Hua seemed to have found her savior and quickly invited him in. When Tang Yuhui saw Tangua, he first apologized, then said, eldest sister, even if you blame me for this matter, I still have to do it. You've suffered so much this year and I can't bear to see anyone slander you. Publishing a clarification in the newspaper is very necessary. Since you've cut ties with your family, then don't go back. Wait for them to bear the consequences themselves. This is what they should do. They can't grow up under the protection of a big tree. You've done enough. Don't explain to anyone and don't publish a statement in the newspaper to speak up for them. Eldest sister, have you noticed why they enjoy your gifts without any qualms, but don't cherish them at all? Seeing that Tangua had noticed him, Tang Yui quickly said, they got it too easily. For their own good they have to suffer this time. If this continues, their leader will be crippled. Eldest sister, we can't protect them forever. Keeping them under our wings is equivalent to breaking their wings. For the sake of their future, we can't care about them anymore. As long as they don't starve to death, let them live. Tangua seemed to have been tricked. Big brother, you're so considerate. I used to think that it was enough to give them a good life. However, I neglected their growth. Speaking of which, it's my fault. It's not your fault. It's also my fault. It's also our mother's fault. Now that they were not even 20 years old, they could slowly correct it. In short, eldest sister was not allowed to pity them in the future. This was the only way for them to grow up. Only when they climb up on their own can they fly high. Even if he couldn't fly, it would be fine as long as he didn't implicate eldest sister. As for the younger ones, he was thoroughly disappointed. Just as he had said, as long as they didn't starve to death, he wouldn't care. I'll listen to big brother. System. Dear host, your acting is really good. Tangua, there's nothing I can do about it. Big brother is too cooperative. Chapter 4007. After persuading Tangua, Tang Yuhui gave her the trinkets he bought outside. Seeing that she really didn't intend to speak up for the Tang family, he felt a little relieved. Before leaving, Tang Yuhui repeatedly emphasized that Tangua must not secretly help her family, otherwise it would be harming them. Mom has a lot of opinions about you. You've given her a lot of money over the years. She probably didn't spend much and saved it all. Tang Yuhui knew his mother very well. Wu Feng was a prideful person. Even if she starved to death, she wouldn't ask Tangua for money. As long as his eldest sister wasn't soft-hearted, this matter would be settled. Once his eldest sister was soft-hearted, she would definitely be the one to suffer. His mother would be unforgiving when the time came. Her words were like stabbing a knife into people's hearts. Now you cut off all ties with your family. Anyway, you're not allowed to interfere in this matter. Tang Yuhui was still worried about this. I'll take care of everything. If they really can't survive, I won't watch them starve to death. Okay, I'll listen to you, big brother, Tangua said very seriously. Big brother has seen the world with the big boss. He knows more than me. Tang Yuhui was a little embarrassed. I learned a little from the boss, but there are really a lot of different things outside. If there's a chance in the future, I'll take you out to see it. The chance Tang Yuhui was talking about was, of course, when he saved enough money to redeem Tangua. Or when Tangua's contract with Xian Lisi expired. Just as Tang Yuhui was about to leave, Tang stopped him. Big brother, about Dad, you're not allowed to interfere in this matter. At the mention of Tang Chuanxiang, Tang Yuhui was full of anger. Big sister, I'm telling you, you must not interfere in Dad's matters. Have you forgotten the hard days when we were young? If it weren't for his gambling addiction, how could we have lived so hard? Can be said that this family was ruined by him. You indulged him and helped him pay off his gambling debts. Tang Yuhui had actually told the original owner a lot about this matter. He told her not to help Tang Chuanxiang. Unfortunately, the original owner was soft-hearted and was afraid that Tang Chuanxiang's matter would bring trouble to the family. He might as well fork out some money and settle the matter. Eldest sister, I know you can't let go of your family, but you shouldn't care about Dad's matters. All these years with you around, the little ones in the family didn't know what a creditor was. Now is the time to let him experience it. Don't worry, Mom is good at hiding money. Even if she wants her life, Dad won't get the money. Tang Yuhui even had an idea in his mind, but he didn't tell Tang Gua. I'll watch over him. You don't have to worry. According to his plan, he should just let Tang Chuanxiang suffer a little. After living a good life for so long, he no longer knew his own worth. Alright, I'll listen to Big Brother. Big Brother is more confident than me. After persuading Tang Gua, Tang Yuhui was finally relieved. However, when he was leaving, he still looked back 3 times with every step he took. He repeatedly reminded her not to care about the family matters and that he would take care of everything. Tang Gua agreed seriously on the surface, but she couldn't help laughing in her heart. It was not bad to have such a big brother. After Tang Yuhui left, she locked herself in the room to read and write. Now that she didn't have any performances or classes, she just did these. The 3 teachers all said that she was talented. If she had learned these things earlier, she might have made a name for herself. Tang Gua wasn't in a hurry. She was only 20 years old and had a long life ahead of her. The system couldn't help but mutter, "Host, it's not long. Your life is shorter than others." Chapter 4008. Tang Gua snapped out of her daze. I think so. But it's about 30 years. That's enough time for me to do what I wanted to do last night. System, host, did you forget something very important? Your cutie has already fainted in the corner from crying. Tang Gua, didn't I not encounter it? Let's do something first. Tang Gua didn't say much and continued writing. She was thinking about what she should do next. There were still a few months before the accident. He had to think of a way to get on that merchant ship. As long as she was on that ship, she could save the people she wanted to save. No matter what kind of conflict there was, she couldn't let anyone she wanted to save die. The eldest son of the Zhou family and her eldest brother had died in the explosion, fire, and sinking of the ship. The second son of the Zhou family was still studying abroad. There was still some time before he returned to the country. He had died in the hands of robbers. According to the background, it was really unexpected. The plot didn't specify how the youngest daughter of the Zhou family had died. In any case, she would be there to watch over the Zhou siblings. None of them could die. The whole family had to live together. Zhou Guan wouldn't have anything to do. Even if he was brought back to the Zhou family, he wouldn't be able to change anything. Tang Yuhui returned to Zhou Ji's side in high spirits. When Zhou Ji asked about the incident, he quickly told him everything in detail. He was even beaming with joy. He was probably very satisfied with the outcome. Zhou Ji listened patiently. He also got to know the other side of his subordinate. Of course, after understanding the details, he felt that Tang Gua was indeed worthy of Tang Yuhui's efforts. Zhou Ji didn't take this matter to heart. He led Zhou Ji back to work. The world wasn't good now, but it was still an opportunity. Whether the Zhou family could rise to the next level depended on what he did next. Tang Yuhui got busy. He didn't forget about Tang Chuanxiang. He arranged for 2 people to keep an eye on him. As long as the Zhou family's lives weren't in danger, Tang Chuanxiang could do whatever he wanted. The Tang family's life was in turmoil. The first thing they were affected by was Tang Si and the other 2. Their pocket money was reduced drastically. Everything they did couldn't be compared to before. In the eyes of outsiders, the 3 of them had become stingy. The 3 of them were people who cared about their reputation. Every day was very unhappy. Tang Yushu was slightly better. At least he could get some remuneration. Although he could only publish a few articles every month, he was still able to publish a few. The one who suffered the most was Tang Yusheng. Painting cost a lot of money and every single material was money. He had asked Wu Feng for money twice this month. However, he still didn't have enough money. If he only bought paint and paper, he wouldn't have the money to do anything else. If he used the money on other things, he wouldn't be able to buy enough paints. He had already tried to sell his paintings for a living. In fact, his talent in painting was not particularly good. He could only be considered above average. In this day and age, there were still many people who knew how to draw. Ordinary people didn't even have enough to eat, so why would they buy paintings? Why would a rich family want to buy a nobody's painting? Tang Yuxing looked down on people who became tools after learning how to draw. Either he didn't sell it, or he would sell it to someone who appreciated the painting, which was the person who gave the painting its value. Chapter 4009. He had never thought of being a tool man, drawing for some occasions and decorating the house. Someone had suggested to him if he wanted to do such a thing. Although the money was not much, at least there would be some income. However, Tang Yuxing had rejected him. Tang Yuxing's words were full of faith and the soul of art. That person felt that he was asking for a snub and decided not to talk to Tang Yuxing about this anymore. That person had thought that if Tang Yuxing was really short of money, he could help him. However, not only was Tang Yuxing not grateful, he even felt that he had been insulted. When he left, that person suddenly realized that Tang Yuxing did not know what was good for him. In this era, many people were starving to death. There were countless people who could not eat. Tang Yuxing might not have seen those people who were starving to the point that their faces were yellow and their bodies were emaciated, their bones were high and their eyeballs were protruding. The soul of art. Bullshit soul. That person must be crazy to introduce jobs to Tang Yuxing. Bah. Tang Yuxing did not know about this and continued to study his so-called art. If anyone insulted his art, he would fiercely argue with them. Unknowingly, many people felt that Tang Yuxing was unreasonable and they slowly distanced themselves from him. No one appreciated Tang Yuxing's paintings and no one wanted to buy them. Someone had asked him if he was willing to go to the house to draw some decorations, but he had to follow the owner's request. Wasn't such a request treating him as a tool? Drawing according to someone else's request had already lost the soul of art. This was an insult to art. Tang Yuxing naturally did not agree. These people were all servants of rich families. When they saw that Tang Yuxing did not know what was good for him, they turned around and found someone else. There were many people who could draw better than Tang Yuxing. They asked Tang Yuxing because he was a student of the school. At first they had some appreciation. However, when they saw Tang Yuxing's reaction, they had long given up on the idea. Tang Yuxing missed one opportunity after another. He was not willing to lower his standards and continued to wait for people to appreciate his paintings. There was a rich family who wanted to buy a few paintings to paste on the wall as decorations. Initially, the discussion was going well. However, Tang Yuxing accidentally heard what the other party wanted to do with the paintings and refused to sell them on the spot. His paintings were to be hung up, admired, or sold to people who liked them. When he heard that his painting would eventually be plastered on the wall and used as wallpaper, he was furious. However, due to the other party's identity, he did not dare to scold him. He could only reject the deal with an ugly expression. At this moment, Tang Yuxing felt that he had talent, but no one appreciated his talent. Thinking of all the stories from the past to the present, he felt that he would definitely be able to find Bo Lu. In order to buy paints, he had to tighten his belt. He had to ask Wu Feng for pocket money twice a month to barely get by. Tang Yuxing, who was depressed, had a strange temper. Not many people were willing to get close to him and his whole person became gloomy. As for Tang Yuxing, it was still alright. After all, publishing an article in a newspaper was a very honorable thing for any scholar. The so-called remuneration was just something he got along the way. It would be more dignified to talk about it. Seeing Tang Yuxing like this, Tang Yuxing tried to persuade him. Yuxing, you can't always be like this. Why don't you find something to do first? Actually, they were about to graduate. There was still a year left. When the time came, he couldn't keep asking his family for living expenses. He had already found a direction, and when the time came, he would go to the news agency to look for a job. Chapter 40:10. She would also write an article about how she must be living a good life. She wanted to show the person who had cut ties with them that he was still doing well even without her. Tang Yuxing did not agree and even threw a tantrum at Tang Yuxing. Tang Yuxing felt that the other party was unreasonable and did not try to persuade him. There were other people waiting for the family. Tang Chuanxiang owed a lot of gambling debts outside, and the creditors came to visit from time to time. However, Wu Feng was also a difficult person to deal with. Every time she came, Wu Feng would sit on the ground and cry as if she was at a funeral. Even if the creditors said harsh words, it was useless. When Wu Feng thought of the past, she wished that Tang Chuanxiang would die. How could she care about his life? As for the money, she hid it well. No one knew where it was. Tang Chuanxiang often came back to make a scene, but there was nothing she could do. Beating Wu Feng up was not very useful. In Wu Feng's opinion, being beaten up was better than losing the money. Anyway, even if she died, she would not hand over the money. No one could do anything to her if she insisted that the family had no money. In fact, she did not know that these debt collectors were gentle because they had been warned by Tang Yuhui. Tang Yuhui's original words were that it was okay to collect debts, but don't threaten the lives of the family. In addition, he also specifically told them that he did not care what they did to Tang Chuanxiang. Tang Yuhui had no feelings for Tang Chuanxiang, his father. If it were not for Tang Chuanxiang, would his sister have suffered so much? The debt collectors tried to find Tang Gua, but before they could, they were warned by the people of Xianles. Since then, they did not dare to find trouble with Tang Gua. They tested step by step and found that whether it was Tang Gua, Tang Yuhui, or the family, they did not care about Tang Chuanxiang's life. Even if Tang Chuanxiang was beaten half to death, they did not react. The creditors were very angry. They could not get the money and Tang Chuanxiang was helpless. In the end, they piled all their anger on Tang Chuanxiang. Once again, Tang Gua heard that Tang Chuanxiang's hands were cut off from the wrists. In the end, he was thrown at the door of the family. Blood flowed all over the floor. This was purely because they could not get the money and had no choice but to deal with Tang Chuanxiang. Wu Feng had to do something even if she didn't want to. I like this ending very much. Tang Gua smiled. This was what Tang Chuanxiang deserved. Now that Tang Chuanxiang's hands had been chopped off, it was not like the situation in the plot. At this time, Tang Chuanxiang would only vent all his anger on the family Tang. In his opinion, if Wu Feng, Tang Si and Tang Si did not dislike Tang Gua, he would not have suffered so much. This was a typical example of someone who couldn't do anything but be a tyrant at home. Wu Feng was not a pushover. She would definitely cause a ruckus with Tang Chuanxiang every day. After living such a peaceful life for so long, it's time for the family to become lively again. System. Host, your chess moves are steady and Big Brother Tang also cooperated well. That brat 111 sent an email saying that he had received an outstanding system reward again. The system was very unhappy. A useless system that didn't know anything and relied on an outstanding host to win. It didn't know shame at all. If he had a serial number and the host was also an employee of the Time Bureau, the outstanding award would definitely not be given to that useless system 111. His follower 222 was not bad. Every year he would receive the most diligent award. Now 222 was already recognized by the system as a model worker. He worked diligently and never slacked off, as expected of his favorite follower. Chapter 40:11. Unlike that useless system 111 which only knew how to brag and suck up to him, there was not much useful information in its mouth. Did Tang Yuxing sell his paintings? The system came back to its senses and quickly said, no, he didn't. Previously, those who wanted to ask him to paint decorative paintings were rejected by him. He said that those people were insulting art. He wouldn't paint something without a soul. Tang Gua giggled. He's quite arrogant. He must have eaten too much. He doesn't know what it's like to be hungry. The three siblings had long gone astray. Even now, Tang Yuxi was still living a good life by writing essays. After a long time, many things would slowly be exposed. Moreover, she wouldn't allow Tang Yuxing to live a good life. He sucked the blood of the original owner and felt that it was natural. How could he live such a good life? It would be best if he lived a miserable life. Only then would she be satisfied. Teacher Qing, what do you think of my painting now? Qing Han was very satisfied to have a student like Tang Gua. When he suddenly heard his student's question, he said proudly, Tang Gua, you are a very talented person. You are improving every time. Your painting is very good. Teacher Qing, what do you think of me finding something to do with painting to train my ability? Qing Han was a little surprised. What do you want to do? Qing Han didn't feel that only paintings that were hung up for appreciation were paintings with soul. He personally felt that as long as one treated each of his works seriously, he would be given the soul of a painter. Can I paint some decorative paintings? I'm still an apprentice and I'm not a famous artist. I don't dare to paint anything to sell. If I'm not famous, even if my painting is good, not many people will like it. Many masters didn't get up step by step. Since it's painting, as long as one can paint, it is an improvement. Ching Han felt that it made sense. Then I'll help you look out. It's easy to find such a job. I heard that some people do need some painters to help decorate their homes. His student was good because her style was unpredictable. That meant that she could master any style. Ching Han felt a sense of achievement and taught all his skills to Tang Guo. He even felt that he might not have anything to teach her in a year. If it weren't for her special situation, he would have suggested that Tang Guo study abroad and get to know better teachers. Within a few days, Ching Han found a few jobs for Tang Guo. When the main family found out that it was the singer from Xian Lisi who had helped them draw the decorations, they felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. If it wasn't for the fact that the person who spoke was Ching Han, they would definitely think that he was a swindler. After Tang Guo displayed her skills, the master of the house clicked his tongue in wonder, and had a new view of the Xian Lisi signboard. It was no wonder that he was popular and sought after. It turned out that he was a multi-talented person and was even Ching Han's student. Not bad. The finished products of these families were all very good. The main family was very satisfied and gave Tang Guo a lot of remuneration, although this amount of money was nothing to her. With the help of these families, Tang Guo received a lot of private work. They would even ask Tang Guo to help them with their decorations on some big occasions. Many people knew and heard that there was a Miss Tang who painted decorations. She was very amazing and could change the walls of a house into another style. Out of respect for Tang Guo, they didn't say anything about her identity as a singer. As a result, many people didn't know that this Miss Tang was that Miss Tang. When Tang Guo received the invitation from the Zhou family, she was also a little surprised. After asking Ching Han, she found out that the Zhou family invited her to draw some Western European-style paintings mainly for the second young master of the Zhou family. It was said that the second young master of the Zhou family was going to return to China next year, and they had to prepare these in advance. Chapter 40:12. When Tang Guo took on those jobs, she did not just paint. She also helped decorate the rooms and suggested what should be placed in the rooms. To put it bluntly, it had something to do with interior design. It was just that in this day and age, this term was still unfamiliar to most people. When the owners saw that she was doing well, they handed everything over to her. Over time, when she needed to decorate the house, not only did she paint, but also the other decorations were all arranged by Tang Guo. Tang Guo had experienced many different worlds, so of course she had a good sense of aesthetics. She combined the personal preferences of the people in this era and added some things that she thought were good and acceptable to the owners. The finished products were very satisfactory. Tang Guo followed the Zhou family to the Zhou family home. The people who met her were Mrs. Zhou and old Madame Zhou. Mrs. Zhou said, "At first I heard that the person who could do this was Miss Tang, but I didn't believe it." "I heard that you are Ching Han's student?" Mrs. Zhou asked with a smile. Tang Guo nodded. "Yes. Then I don't have to worry. Ching Han has been abroad for so many years. Since you are his student, my second son will like the room you decorate." After Mrs. Zhou said this, she looked at old Madame Zhou and asked, "Mom, what do you think?" "Do as you see fit. As long as my second son likes it, it's fine." Old Madame Zhou did not speak to Tang Guo. She probably still minded Tang Guo's identity as a singer. If the second son of the Zhou family had not come back, Mrs. Zhou would not have listened to her and asked Tang Guo to help the Zhou family. Tang Guo could feel that old Madame Zhou did not like it, so she did not bother to be polite. There were many people in this world who did not like her and looked down on her identity as a singer. Was she going to point at their noses and argue with them? The Zhou family hired her to do things because she was her employer. She was paid to do things, nothing else. Although it was said that she was decorating the rooms for the Zhou family, it was actually a small courtyard. The Zhou family was so big and the Zhou family was the main family. Of course, they were given a small courtyard. "Miss Tang, I'll leave this small courtyard to you." "Oh right, second brother really likes to take care of some flowers and plants. You young people have similar taste in flowers and plants. I think it'll be easier for second brother to like the decorations. I'll leave these to you. If you need anything, let the housekeeper do it. During this time, the housekeeper will be by your side to help." Mrs. Zhou didn't have any prejudice against Tang Guo. On the contrary, she thought that it was amazing for a singer to become Ching Han's student. If it weren't for her status as Mrs. Zhou, she would have wanted to follow her second son abroad to take a look. Unfortunately, old Madame Zhou probably wouldn't agree. She was the daughter-in-law of the Zhou family, and there were some things that were beyond her control. In addition, she was also worried about her eldest son and youngest daughter. If she didn't stay at home, who would take care of them? Okay, Mrs. Zhou. If you know of any special preferences of second young master, you can send someone to tell me in advance. He will. Second brother left the country a long time ago. It's difficult to communicate with him. I only know what he liked before he left the country. Otherwise, she wouldn't have hired someone to decorate the yard. In the letter, second brother said that he would not go out this time. Of course, she was happy. This yard had to be decorated well. Tangwa got busy. The Zhou family arranged several assistants for her, so it was more convenient for her to do anything. Recently, she had arranged fewer classes, and the 3 teachers did not have any objections. Chapter 40:13. Tangwa was too talented. During this time they could discuss how to teach this talented student. In addition, Tangwa did not neglect her performance at Xianlisi. In her free time she collaborated with her music teacher Inu to write songs and compose songs for Xianlisi to sing. Because it was her and Inu's original work, Xianlisi bought the songs and valued her even more. As for the rest, as long as she did not delay her performance, Xianlisi did not care what she did. In addition, when they found out that she had unknowingly mixed into the circle of the rich, they would give her more face. Many of Xianlisi's singers relied on men to walk in front of these famous people, but Tangwa relied on her own ability. Who wouldn't pay attention to her? Talented and capable people were respected wherever they went. The people around her had a subtle change in their impression of her. Tangwa did not pay attention to this. She was very busy every day. She did not forget to write articles for the newspaper. She seemed to be busier than the big boss. After being busy for half a month, she did not meet Tang Yuhui, who was working for Zhou Ji. They were both working for the Zhou family. They would eventually meet, so she was not in a hurry. About 20 days later, Tangwa went to work at the Zhou family early in the morning. She happened to run into Tang Yuhui, who came back with Zhou Ji. Tang Yuhui was a little dumbfounded. He forgot that his boss was still beside him. "Sister, why are you here?" Tang Yuhui had worked for Zhou Ji for a long time. He knew that Madame Zhou did not like girls to show their faces in public. She might not like the identity of a singer. Of course, he was curious about Tangwa's visit, but more than that, he was worried. When Zhou Ji got out of the car, he noticed the woman coming out of the rickshaw. He had seen Tangwa before. Of course, he knew who she was. He was also curious about why she came to the Zhou family. Tangwa glanced at Zhou Ji from the corner of her eye. She did not look at him again. She only whispered to Tang Yuhui about her visit to the Zhou family. Tang Yuhui could not help but give her a thumbs up. "Sister, you are amazing." After saying that, he finally remembered his boss and hurriedly introduced him to Tangwa. Tang Yuhui didn't think too much about it. He just felt that his sister was very powerful and couldn't wait to introduce her to the people he had a good impression of. The system scanned Zhou Ji for a long time. At the same time, it was analyzing whether this guy was the host's cutie. He didn't feel anything unusual about Tangwa, but he found that Zhou Ji's attention was indeed attracted by Tangwa. "System, dear host, is that your cutie? Why didn't I feel anything unusual? Did your cutie really get lost this time?" He hadn't appeared for so long. By the way, regardless of whether this person is your big cutie or not, he is indeed looking at you. When did you become so cunning? It's not a divination. I'm just a little worried. Speaking of which, an excellent man in a small world wasn't bad either. I was really worried about that guy. If you don't come early, you might be abducted by someone else. If you don't come early, you won't even be able to find a place to cry. Host, don't you think that Zhou Ji is more like the chosen one than Zhou Guan? He's handsome, rich, smart, capable, and has a good status. If it weren't for the fact that he's the chosen one and his luck is slightly better, he would be much better than the male lead. Speaking of which, if that guy really gets lost, you can actually change your taste. I think this guy is good. Chapter 40:14. Tangwa didn't want to bother with the system's random matchmaking. Zhou Ji looked like a good person and was very open-minded. However, some people just didn't feel anything. Besides, no matter how excellent a person was, not all of them were suitable for her. What she needed was to find someone who made her feel happy and comfortable to get along with. She didn't know who it was, but Zhou definitely wasn't it. The system sensed that Tangguo wasn't interested, so it didn't say anything more. No matter what, the host was happy. I know some of second brother's hobbies. Zhou took the initiative to speak. Tangguo didn't refuse. Since the master asked, she just had to work according to the requirements. In the next few days, Zhou would talk to Tangguo about second young master Zhou's hobbies when he was free, but he didn't say anything else. Zhou was a very boring person. Everything he did was business. He wasn't the kind of person who was happy. Even if he was very happy, he would only smile faintly. In Tangguo's eyes, he was just a tool to inherit the family business. It wasn't that such a person wasn't good, but she felt that such a person wasn't suitable for her. She sensed that Zhou had other feelings for her, but she didn't want to expose them. In the later performances, Zhou came to watch her for the first time. After the performance, he even talked to her for a while. This was amazing. Many people knew that the young master of the Zhou family looked at Tangguo in a different light. Their opinion of her was even higher. Old Madame Zhou knew about this, but she didn't care. In old Madame Zhou's eyes, her eldest grandson was going to do big things. It wasn't a big deal for him to go to those kinds of occasions. It wasn't a big deal for him to like women occasionally. As long as this woman was obedient and didn't try to marry into the Zhou family, she could do anything if she wanted to be the eldest young mistress of the Zhou family. However, she still didn't like Tangguo. Tangguo couldn't be bothered to argue with her. She didn't care about Zhou's attitude towards her. If she didn't like someone, it would be useless no matter what he did to her. Tang Yuhui was very worried when he found out about this. He even came to see Tangguo to test her attitude. His boss was a good person, but he didn't think that his sister would have a good ending with him. It wasn't easy to marry into a high family. The Zhou family had too many rules. He was afraid that his sister would suffer. Big brother, you're thinking too much. I don't have any thoughts about the Zhou family, nor do I have any thoughts about your big boss. Tang Yuhui asked with uncertainty. After all, if it were anyone else, they would have been tempted by Zhou's attitude. Although Zhou did not do anything, every time Tangguo performed, he would come to watch when he was free and buy her some flowers. Anyone with a discerning eye could see why. If it were any other girl, she would have been touched long ago and given her heart to him. Really, don't worry. If I really want to find you a brother-in-law, he'll definitely be obedient. He'll only listen to me and treat me well. He won't be in a position where he can't control himself. She really did not have any feelings for Zhou. He was very outstanding, but he was not her cup of tea. Tang Yuhui's eyes lit up. That's good. I'm looking for someone who doesn't have any worries and only cares about girls. Big brother objected to this, not because Big Boss was not good. On the contrary, Big Boss was a good person, but the Zhou family was too complicated. Young master is the heir of the Zhou family. He's destined to consider all aspects. There are some things that he can't control. Even with young master's protection, after you enter the Zhou family, you'll be the young madam of the Zhou family. Madam is fine, but the old madam doesn't like her. Who knows what will happen when young master isn't around? If she casually accused you of teaching young master bad things, I wouldn't know what to do. Now, since you don't like young master, I'm relieved. Chapter 40:15. Hey. Big brother, if you have the chance, tell young master everything, Tangguo said. She didn't like this kind of vague feeling. The other party didn't really say anything. She couldn't just go to him and say, don't waste your time. I don't like you. If there's a chance, I'll remind young master from time to time. My sister likes someone who's obedient and only treats her well. Status isn't important. In Tang Yuhui's opinion, it was best to find a brother-in-law who had a simple family and was easy to get along with. His sister would live a comfortable life if she was in charge. Otherwise, if she married into her husband's family, she wouldn't know whether it was good or bad. His sister couldn't wait to be doted on. Later, Tang Yuhui really did find a chance to talk about his sister's views on choosing a husband in front of Zhou. After that day, Zhou was more silent. Although he still came to see Tangguo's performances, he didn't ask anyone to send flowers. No one knew what he was thinking. When Tangguo was at the Zhou family's house, the two of them would greet each other normally when they ran into each other. In 3 months, Tangguo had finished decorating the Zhou family's small courtyard. She even asked someone to take photos for future publicity. Ever since she designed the courtyard for the Zhou family's second young master, Tangua had become very famous. The outside world didn't know that the designer Miss Tang was Miss Tang from Xianle Sea. But the people in the upper circle all knew. Other than people like old Madame Zhou who didn't like her background, there were also some open-minded people who admired her talent and would go to her shows from time to time. Next month will be when the merchant ship is in trouble. Tangua calculated the time and felt that she should visit Tang Yuhui more often and ask about the merchant ship. There were so many important people on board at that time. They were probably having a party. A few days later, before Tangua could ask, Tang Yuhui took the initiative to tell Tangua about it. He also gave Tangua a ship ticket. This was a pleasant surprise. Young master gave it to me. Tang Yuhui scratched his head. I wanted to refuse, but there aren't many occasions like this. I'll do more things for young master in the future to make it up to you. This time sister can go and see the world more. Tangua was happy to accept it. This ticket was Zhou Ji's life-saving ticket. It was given at the right time. A month later, Tangua boarded the merchant ship with her ticket. Sure enough, this was a very grand gathering. It should be said that it was a business meeting. Many influential people had come. Thinking back to the plot, not a single person on the ship survived. He wondered who was behind this plot. Miss Tang is here too? The person who greeted Tangua was none other than the boss of Xianle, Qin Jingyuan. Xianle Sea was only a small part of the Qin clan's business, so it wasn't considered a big business. Of course, Qin Jingyuan was very familiar with Tangua. He was the one who signed Tangua when she was 15 years old. He even signed her for 10 years. Boss. Tangua nodded at Qin Jingyuan. Qin Jingyuan had a smile on his face and there was some appreciation in his expression. He didn't ask how Tangua got the ticket. If Tangua really wanted to come, there was definitely a way to get a ticket. She was no longer a simple singer in Xianle. Thinking about how he had only signed her for 10 years, Qin Jingyuan suddenly felt that he had suffered a loss. He felt that signing her for 20 years was actually better. But now he could only think about it. Tangua thought that the boss was really lucky to have met her. Otherwise he would have lost his life here. Yes, this incident caused the entire power of Sea City to be cleaned up. Chapter 40:16. After Qin Jingyuan died, his younger brother Qin Jingran took over Xianle Sea. It was worth mentioning that Qin Jingran fell in love with Tang Xi later on. Many times when Tang Xi caused trouble, Qin Jingran helped to deal with it. It was because of Tang Xi that the Qin family was hated by others and gradually declined. Of course, this was after the original owner left Xianle Sea. Tangua's ticket was a VIP ticket and she was given a very good room on the ship. She used the excuse that she was not feeling well and said goodbye to Tang Yuhui before returning to her room to rest. In fact, after returning to her room, she took out the paper puppet and dripped a drop of blood on it. The paper puppet turned into her appearance. Then she stuck an invisibility talisman on herself. Under special circumstances, she could only use this method to find the cause of the ship's explosion. She guessed that dangerous things must have been buried on the ship and they would be ignited at night. At that time, the ship would be far away from the coast and there would be no chance to escape if an accident happened. This world was really chaotic. No matter how rich or how high one's status was, one would still die an unnatural death for various reasons. Using the invisibility talisman, Tang was shuttled to every corner of the ship. The system helped to scan for dangerous items on the ship. After a while, it found that many dangerous items were placed in many places. As long as one of them was ignited, the entire ship would fall into disaster. Tangua did not directly take these things away. Instead, she emptied them and stuffed a large amount of sand inside. Even if she ignited them, it would be useless. During this time, she let the paper puppet replace her to entertain the guests. She stuck the invisibility talisman on herself and hid in a corner to check for suspicious people. The sky was dark and the ship was very far from the coast. The ship was brightly lit and there were all kinds of beautiful music. Tangua looked at her paper puppet that was playing the piano. She did not look at it anymore because she had already found some suspicious people. There were a total of 3 people. They were all waiters on the ship. Tangua followed them and saw with her own eyes that they ran to a corner and found those dangerous things. They pulled out a long line and prepared to ignite it. Tangua knocked them out with a hand chop and tied them up with a rope, making them stay in their original position. The 3 people were not spared. They were all hit. After that, Tangwa went to the outside of the ship and saw a small boat below. After settling the matter, Tangwa didn't relax. Who knew what would happen later? After partying for half the night, most of the things that needed to be discussed were discussed. Everyone returned to their rooms. The ship did not catch fire, explode, and sink like in the plot. It was not until dawn that Tangwa saw the people on the ship discover the three people and find countless dangerous things stuffed with sand. Only then did she return to her room and put away the paper puppet. Just as he lay down, someone knocked on the door. She walked over to open the door. There were three people at the door. Tang Yuhui, Zhouji, and her boss, Qin Jingyuan. Big sister, it's good that you're all right. Tang Yuhui wiped off his cold sweat. God knew how panicked he was when he saw those things. They didn't know who had saved them, but if no one had helped them, they would have died here. Tang Yuhui felt a little regretful. He had almost harmed his eldest sister. Tang Yuhui didn't say much. Instead, he asked Tangwa to follow them. Tangwa did as she was told. There was no danger now. However, the discovery of those things did indeed make the people on the ship restless. Last night they had almost gone to see their ancestors. The terrifying feeling of surviving a disaster made everyone on the ship feel depressed. This incident was a wake-up call for them. They didn't take good care of their safety. As for catching the mastermind, they weren't worried at all. Weren't those three people here? They had plenty of ways to make the three of them talk. However, this incident had left them with a serious psychological trauma. Chapter 40:17. When it was close to noon, the merchant ship docked. Everyone on the ship alighted safely. When they left, they turned back to look at the shore. No one knew what they were thinking. Tangwa left under the escort of Tang Yuhui. As for the people who put dangerous things on the merchant ship and tried to take the lives of the people on the ship, it's not her business what to do next. She believed that the leaders of Haiqing would handle this matter perfectly. Tang Yuhui sent Tangwa back to the villa and reminded her, "Don't walk outside if you have nothing to do. Take the car wherever you go. Let Hazy follow you." Big sister, the world is in chaos. Tangwa understood tacitly. The world was in chaos. This was the inevitable result. It wasn't something that anyone could change on their own. You don't have to worry too much. There are many big shots in Haiqing. These big shots won't make Haiqing unable to survive. Tang Yuhui felt that the topic was a little serious. Says, "I'm here. I definitely won't let anything happen to big sister. If anything happens, I'll protect you." However, when he thought about what happened last night, Tang Yuhui felt a little unconfident. It seemed that he still lacked experience. In the future he could not be so rash. He had to consider everything thoroughly. After this lesson, Tang Yuhui put in a lot of effort in everything he did. He helped Zhouji overcome countless dangers in advance. Recently, Tangwa stayed at home. Every day she read the latest newspapers. Some were about Haiqing and some were about other places. Looking at these sad, helpless and sorrowful things, Tangwa finally felt like writing poems and articles. With 2 articles and 3 poems, the name Mountain Man was completely spread. Mountain Man's articles and poems were sharp. When one read them, it gave off a feeling of sadness at the beginning. After reading it, there was a kind of soul-stirring feeling. In short, the words were clearly not long, but it seemed to help them express the thousands of words in their hearts. Unknowingly, the people who worshipped Mountain Man all addressed him as "you" or Mr. Mountain Man. The most helpless thing was that it had been more than a year since Mountain Man's articles were published. Unfortunately, they had not seen his true face. Su Chongxing from the news agency wrote many letters to Tangwa. He even asked if he could interview her. Of course, Tangwa refused. That day hadn't come yet, so there was no need to rush. The mountain people were famous now, but it was not stable yet. She decided to let the matter fester for another year or 2 and produce more works. It would be best if it could be made into a book so that the scholars who knew of her would worship her. She had to reach 90%, let alone 100%. Dear host, second Young Master Zhou's 4th episode is coming soon. The system had always remembered this. This was a very big deal. The host said that the 3 young masters and young mistresses of the Zhou family must be present. Also, his host had a good relationship with Zhouji. Although Zhouji was still a little unwilling to give up, he didn't force his host. It was just that every time he looked at his host, his eyes showed that he couldn't get what he wanted. Old Madam knew that Zhouji treated Tangwa differently. She had even invited Tangwa over and said some unpleasant things to her. She had warned her that the young master of the Zhou family could not be someone like her. Although her words weren't so harsh, that was what she meant. Of course, old madam had another meaning. Although she couldn't become the young mistress, if she really liked Zhou Ji and wanted to enter the Zhou family, she had to wait until Zhou Ji married the young mistress. Chapter 40:18. For the sake of her elder brother and Zhou Ji, Tanghua did not say anything to infuriate the old woman. But Tanghua had asked someone to pass on what Madame Zhou had said to Zhou Ji. She did not know what Zhou Ji and Madame Zhou had talked about, but Madame Zhou did not make trouble for Tanghua. Perhaps Zhou Ji knew that this matter would cause trouble for Tanghua, so he even talked to her alone. Don't take it to heart. Zhou Ji was not good at expressing himself in front of women. In addition, he was in a high position and had always been the one giving orders. This was the first time he had shown such an attitude. He really admired Tanghua and liked her in his heart. If Tanghua liked him and was willing to be with him, he would not mind refuting Madame Zhou and marrying her no matter what. After all, he was the head of the Zhou family. This was something he could do. But Tanghua did not seem to be interested in him, so there was nothing he could do. He was not the kind of person who liked to force others. From Tang Yuhui he had heard about her criteria for choosing a partner. Unfortunately, each of her conditions sounded very simple, but he could not guarantee that he would be able to fulfill them. As the eldest young mistress of the Zhou family, she was destined to bear a lot of responsibilities. The man was in love, but the woman was not. What else could he say? There won't be a next time. This was Tanghua's answer. She did not scold Madame Zhou for taking advantage of her seniority because of her elder brother. She even had a premonition that if Madame Zhou knew that there was still a descendant of the Zhou family outside, she would probably bring her back. Thinking of this, Tanghua's bad mood was swept away. She hoped that Zhou Ji would work harder and create some surprises for this self-righteous old lady. I won't disturb you in the future. Zhou Ji seemed to understand that his appearance had brought a lot of trouble to Tanghua. Now many people had already labeled her as the woman that young Master Zhou had taken a fancy to. If it were not for her good self-restraint and Tang Yuhui knowing the truth, they would have made a scene. After knowing her for more than a year, he knew that she was not a simple singer. The people outside had underestimated her. Tanghua smiled faintly. Zhou Ji looked at her eyes carefully. In those beautiful eyes he could not find any place that belonged to him. Finally he gave up. After this time, Zhou Ji did not go to Xian Lisi to support her or send her flowers. He also asked someone to help clarify things. Although others did not believe it, Zhou Ji did not go near Tanghua. Gradually people did not take this matter to heart. Tongzi cover High City. The story of this life has changed a lot because the people on that ship were saved by Tanghua. Although Sea City was in chaos for a while, it did not suffer too much of an impact. Under the control of these leaders, Sea City was much more peaceful than other places. It became a temporary paradise on earth and everyone yearned for it. Around April, the second young master of the Zhou family returned to High City. This was a young man who had received a new education. He had left his hometown for many years. Seeing the countless changes in his hometown made Zhou Xian feel a little uncomfortable. However, this bit of discomfort was completely swept away by the time he returned to his courtyard. Zhou Xian looked at the decorations in his small courtyard and was pleasantly surprised. He liked all the decorations very much. He especially liked some of the paintings hanging on the walls. Chapter 40:19. Who didn't learn oil painting when they studied abroad? He also had some talent in oil painting. Looking at the oil paintings that gave him some feeling, Zhou Xian didn't even want to eat anymore. He just kept staring at them. The servants of the Zhou family didn't disturb second young master when they saw how obsessed he was. After Zhou Xian was done admiring the paintings, he asked which master painted these paintings. In his opinion, these paintings were definitely painted by a very famous master. Although they were oil paintings, the contents were scenes of the country. Every single one of them gave him a great shock. He learned about Tanghua from the servants and that his courtyard was decorated by her. It was said that she was a nobody. Zhou Xian couldn't stay calm. A nobody? Are you kidding me? Before he left the country he had already started learning oil painting. Speaking of which, it had been more than 10 years. He had several oil painting teachers abroad, but he was sure that none of them could paint as well as this nobody. Zhou Xian looked very conflicted. Could it be that there were so many talents in the country and he was so short-sighted? No, I want to see her. Zhou Xian was even more interested when he found out that she was a woman. The fact that Tang Guo was a singer at Xianles was no secret in the Zhou family. Although everyone didn't mention this as her reputation grew, the more people didn't talk about it. But there were only a few people who didn't know. When Zhou Xian found out that she was a singer, he was even more surprised. As expected of a great hermit, Zhou Xian was impressed. I studied abroad for so many years, but I can't even compare to a girl. How embarrassing. Hearing that he might not be able to make an appointment with Tang Guo today, Zhou Xian asked someone to buy a ticket at a high price. Before Tang Guo's performance, he secretly peeked at the cafe opposite Xianles. It was almost time for the performance and Zhou Xian walked in excitedly. The seat of the ticket was very good. It was at the front. After all, it was second young Master Zhou. It was very easy for him to get a ticket to the front. When he heard the unique music, Zhou Xian's eyes lit up. As an international student, besides oil painting, music was also a compulsory subject for him. Although he wasn't particularly talented in this area, he could tell whether it was good or bad. He still had the basic ability to appreciate. When the music started playing, he knew whether it was good or not. Zhou Xian heard the people around him talking about the new song written by Miss Tang and her teacher Yin. He was very impressed. He had seen many musical performances abroad. At this time, Tang Guo's position in his heart was comparable to that of a musician. As soon as Tang Guo appeared on the stage, Zhou Xian felt as if a fairy had descended from the heavens. When Tang Guo opened her mouth to sing the first line, he suddenly understood a word that he didn't know how to describe. Wasn't this the word crisp? The melodious melody contained feelings that were not love, but the way of the world. Listening to it made one's eyes turn red. That's right. Unknowingly, Miss Tang, who only sang about romance, had changed her style. The style had changed a lot, but the songs were still good. They liked them even more and didn't feel uncomfortable at all. Moreover, everyone could sing these songs now. Singing such songs wouldn't make one's family feel bad. After Zhou Xian heard this, he was in a daze for a long time. Wonderful. Not only were the lyrics wonderful, but the song was also wonderful. He saw that the people present were staring at the woman on the stage. Some of their eyes were slightly red and he didn't know what they were thinking. Chapter 40-20. Go and buy some flowers. Buy everything you can. Zhou Xian took out a stack of money and handed it to his attendant. At this moment he was full of admiration and appreciation for the woman on the stage. He also had a little other feeling. Anyway, it was right to give her flowers. The news that second young Master Zhou bought all the flowers in Xianles spread like wildfire. After the performance, many people were talking about it. Second young Master Zhou was a member of the Zhou family and Tang Guo was a singer in Xianles. They were all thinking that Tang Guo was really capable. First, she charmed the first young master of the Zhou family. Now the second young master of the Zhou family had just returned and she was already staring at him. Zhou Xian didn't know about this. Now that the person sitting in front of him was Tang Guo, he didn't know how silly he was smiling. Miss Tang, I like the courtyard you designed for me. As long as you like it, Tang Guo replied indifferently, but her eyes were looking at Zhou Xian. The system felt something and couldn't help but tremble. Host, is it the guy who came late? Tang Guo was silent. Although she didn't answer, the system still understood. It was the guy who came late. This guy didn't even know what he had almost done. If his big brother Zhou Ji had a different personality, he might have already bitten the host. It would be too late for him to cry. Tang Guo wasn't happy. Although I don't want to be too involved with the Zhou family. The old lady of the Zhou family is an elder. If I'm too involved with the Zhou family, the elders will have to suppress me. I can't let him be unfilial to his own grandmother for me. The system didn't feel good. Did she mean that she didn't want it? It looked at Zhou Xian with pity. As expected, he was an unlucky guy who didn't even know how to choose his identity. He would only be abandoned by the host. Zhou Xian didn't know why, but he felt a chill all over his body. It was as if something was floating away from him. I heard that those paintings were also done by Miss Tang? Tang Guo nodded. Yes. Miss Tang, do you know how good you are at painting? Zhou Xian's eyes lit up. I've seen many works overseas and I've even learned oil painting from some teachers. Although you're not very famous, I think your painting isn't any worse than those masters. Many famous paintings of famous people were liked by many people. They said that the paintings were good. Actually, there was another point, which was that the famous person's own merits were added to the painting. Zhou Xian wasn't lying either. With Tangua's level, as long as she was given a stage, she would definitely shine, just like she did on the stage of Xianles. He was different from those who had grown up in China. He did not feel that performing on stage was not good. Instead, he felt that the country needed such a stage. In his eyes, Tangua would definitely become a famous musician in his country. Zhou Xian did not doubt this at all. Second young master, you flatter me. Zhou Xian was more direct. No, I'm serious. I don't usually praise people. Since I'm praising you, of course it means that you're very good. Tangua understood a little. This second young master Zhou was a person who received a new education. His way of thinking was a little different from other people. Thus, she became more direct with her words. Actually, I also think that my painting is not bad. Previously, when I helped you decorate the courtyard, I just wanted to practice and accumulate experience. It's not a good idea to shut yourself in your room and draw without thinking. Zhou Xian felt that this way of communication was better. That's right. Miss Tang is a very thoughtful person. Thiek. Chapter 40-21. I heard that the songs that Miss Tang sings are all written by herself? I collaborated with my teacher. Although Tangua could write her own songs, Inu had helped her a lot. Moreover, Inu had given her a lot of fright, so she did this to repay her teacher. These songs would definitely be written into history in the future. Inu was a very talented person. As long as there were no accidents, he would become famous in the future. It was a win-win situation. It's really well written. Tangua pursed her lips and smiled. I'm also very satisfied. Hearing this, Zhou Xian laughed heartily. His eyes did not move away from Tangua. Miss Tang, you are a very talented person. Have you ever thought of going to the world to see more? I have thought about it, but I don't have the chance now, Tangua said honestly. Zhou Xian said again, that's great. If Miss Tang wants to go in the future, I can introduce you. I know many teachers. Unfortunately, I am only a little talented in oil painting. In other aspects, my teachers think that I am a piece of rotten wood that is difficult to carve. It is useless to have excellent teachers. If you want to go in the future, I will introduce all my teachers to you. They will definitely like you. Tangua realized that Zhou Xian was very serious. It was as if he really thought that she would be appreciated by others. Therefore, her reply was much more sincere. Thank you, second young master. You're welcome. I like the courtyard that you helped me design. Zhou Xian's heart was itching. He felt that Tangua definitely knew a lot of things, but it was a little presumptuous to ask so much. Miss Tang, can I come and look for you in the future? I can ask about painting. Tangua thought about it and did not refuse. Perhaps she really needed Zhou Xian to help her in the future and visit those excellent teachers. Thus the two of them officially met. From that day onwards, every time Tangua performed, there would be a loyal fan sitting at the front. After the performance, this second young master would buy all the flowers in Xianles and give them all to Tangua. At other times, Zhou Xian would also sneak into Tangua's villa to look for her. He found that not only did she learn painting and music, but she also learned foreign languages. Zhou Xian was very good at foreign languages and he was proficient in 3 foreign languages. With this ability, Zhou Xian and Tangua became closer. System, dear host, you said it yourself. Don't get too involved with the Zhou family. That old madam isn't easy to deal with. She'll definitely cause trouble for you. I didn't say that we should go to the Zhou family. Isn't it the same if we kidnap her to the family Tang? Once I'm done here, I'll kidnap him overseas and visit his teachers. As the saying goes, there's no end to learning. There's nothing wrong with learning from some famous people. This is an opportunity. System, are you trying to trick little Tongzi? Only she could come up with such a lousy excuse. Besides, you don't have to get married. If I don't get married, what can old madam say? I've already told Zhou Xian that if he doesn't accept, he can go find someone else. I won't force him. This is just a matter of mutual consent. System, I can't win against this woman. After a period of contact, Zhou Xian indeed found that he was moved by this talented Miss Tang, so he was more sincere in sending gifts. Every time he went out, he would dress up well. He had also heard some rumors. It was said that his serious older brother had been rejected by Miss Tang. Zhou Xian wanted to laugh, but he felt that it was a little dangerous. She didn't even like his eldest brother, so how could she like him, the second young master who didn't do proper things? Thinking of this, Zhou Xian was a little worried. Zhou Xian's love for Tang Guo was something that couldn't be wrapped up in paper. When Zhou Ji was free after he finished his work, he heard about it. At first he was a little jealous. Later he felt that it was normal that his second brother couldn't escape from a girl like Tang Guo. Didn't he do something unexpected because of this woman? Although it wasn't too out of line, it was already very surprising. One day when Zhou Xian was dressed up and was about to go out, he was stopped by Zhou Ji. "Are you going to find Miss Tang?" The Peak. Chapter 40-22. Zhou Xian was stunned for a moment. He carefully observed Zhou Ji's eyes and nodded. "Yes. She may not like our family. You have to be mentally prepared." Zhou Ji was no longer jealous of his brother. He only felt that his brother was a little pitiful. He patted Zhou Xian's shoulder. "She is a free and independent person. A family like ours is a restraint for her. If it doesn't work out, don't be sad." Zhou Xian was relieved. So his brother was here to comfort him, not to beat him up. Zhou Xian tugged at his tie. "As long as you don't stop me, it will be fine. You are my biggest obstacle." Zhou Ji. Wasn't it his grandmother? He had already offended her. Anyway, he didn't think highly of this. Thinking that his brother also liked Miss Tang, Zhou Xian was a little worried. "Brother, if I can win Miss Tang's heart, you won't mind, right?" Zhou Xian asked weakly. They were brothers. He didn't want to hurt their relationship because of this. Zhou Ji was also stunned for a moment. Then he said, "Feelings can't be forced. Miss Tang has no feelings for me. It's no longer possible between me and her." What he meant was that it was Miss Tang's freedom to choose whoever she wanted. How could he fall out with his brother over this? In Zhou Ji's eyes, women were not everything. He was the heir of the Zhou family. Most of his time and energy was spent on business and the Zhou family. Speaking of feelings, they occupied the least part of his heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up on someone who moved him so easily. Zhou Ji was even certain that he would never meet another person who could move him in this life. In the beginning, he even thought that if she was really willing to enter the Zhou family, he could protect her in front of Madame Zhou, speak up for her and support her. Even if this would make Madame Zhou sad. Now that everything was out in the open, it was all in the past. He also put away the sudden impulse from before and became the young master of the Zhou family again. Zhou Xian was relieved. "That's good. Brother, I really like Miss Tang. But I don't want us to be estranged just because I like Miss Tang." "Miss Tang is not an ordinary girl," Zhou Ji reminded him. "If you can win her heart, you are quite capable." Thinking of the words that Tang Yuhui had said in front of him, it was probably Miss Tang who had warned him. From her words, it was clear that Miss Tang would never go against her principles for the sake of so-called love. From Miss Tang's way of doing things, it could be seen that she respected those who respected her. If someone looked down on her, she would not have a deep relationship with that person. At most, she would talk about cooperation and nothing else. Madame Dowager had looked for Miss Tang several times, but Miss Tang had been patient and didn't flare up, mostly because of Tang Yuhui. She was giving him some face. "Then I'm relieved. As long as Big Brother isn't angry, I have nothing to worry about." Seeing Zhou Xian leave happily, Zhou Ji did not know what to say. He felt that his brother was too optimistic. Miss Tang had countless suitors, but she had never looked at any of them. Even for him, it was likely that he had taken advantage of Tang Yuhui. Speaking of which, he was the young master of the Zhou family. His status in Sea City was really one of the best, but he was actually despised. Critics. Chapter 40-23. If he said it out loud, no one would believe it, right? Zhou Xian didn't know what his brother was thinking. He even pitied his younger brother who was infatuated with Miss Tang. He felt that things weren't that complicated. He and Miss Tang had many similar interests. Miss Tang was also very curious. As long as she was free, they would gather together to discuss painting, music, and foreign languages. No matter what they talked about, they could talk about it together. Now, they could be considered close friends, right? Fortunately, he drank a lot of ink. Just because he was proficient in 3 foreign languages, Miss Tang would look at him in a different light, right? Zhou Xian, who had settled down, went to Tangua every day. In Xianles, he liked to buy all the flowers and give them to Tangua. At other times, he would buy a rose and give it to Tangua when he went to see her. What made Zhou Xian the happiest was that she didn't reject him. What did this mean? It meant that he had succeeded one step. Zhou Xian couldn't be idle every day. He had been back for a while. In the end, with his outstanding talent, he became a teacher in several schools. Yes, there were many schools. He mainly taught foreign languages and oil painting. His schedule wasn't full. Anyway, he had time to see Miss Tang. If that was the case, he wouldn't be considered an idle second young master, but a teacher who was respected by others. When Tang Guo learned about this matter, she also asked about the other party's school. Zhou Xian said that he liked it when Tang Guo asked about him. This meant that she cared about him. Zhou Xian secretly thought that if she didn't care about him, why would she care about his matters? But he didn't know that Tang Guo was thinking about two of the schools. Weren't they the schools that Tang Si, Tang Yuxing and Tang Yushu were in? Zhou Xian had become a teacher in these two schools. Very good, very good. Second young master, you have to teach well. You should be very popular with the students, right? Zhou Xian nodded quickly. They are very enthusiastic. Everyone's eyes are filled with the desire for knowledge. Tang Guo couldn't help but laugh. She didn't know how many of them really wanted to learn. But she knew that some of them were just following the trend. They felt that learning this would make them a new generation of humans. These days, any teacher who came back from the outside world was highly respected by the students. It wasn't that these teachers weren't good. On the contrary, these teachers who gave up studying abroad and came back to teach students at this time were really worthy of respect. The problem was with these students. They liked the novelty of the foreign teachers and felt that learning the knowledge of these teachers was like welcoming a new era. However, in the face of some of the older teachers in the country, who emphasized on words and looked like old pedants, they did not respect them as much. Instead, they would gossip behind his back that this teacher was a pedantic and feudal person. Tang Guo only thought about these words in her heart and did not say them out loud. This was something that had to be experienced in this era, and it wasn't something that anyone could change easily. When she came back to her senses, she still felt that she had to do what she wanted to do. As for the rest, it would just go with the wind. In the plot, Zhou Xian also became a teacher in these schools. Now, it was only because he got to know her that he was slightly delayed. The overall plot had not changed. Zhou Xian's encounter with bandits happened when he brought a student out to sketch. Speaking of which, in order to protect these students, he took the initiative to expose his identity and let the bandits release the students. Chapter 40-24. In the end, Zhou Xian was killed for some unknown reason. Tang Guo guessed that the bandits must have received information from someone. Otherwise, the ransom given by the Zhou family would have allowed them to live freely for the rest of their lives. At that time, young Master Zhou was already dead. Zhou Xian continued to teach because he felt that he was not capable of managing the Zhou family. At the same time, the Zhou family had a very capable young lady. This young lady was in charge of the Zhou family at that time. Miss Zhou did not go abroad and studied in another place. After hearing about young Master Zhou's accident, she came back to manage the Zhou family. Although it was chaotic for a while, the Zhou family was well managed by her. Second young Master Zhou felt that it was a good idea to let his sister manage the Zhou family. He knew that he was not suitable for that. Even if old Madame could not do it, he did not object. However, many things happened later that caught him off guard. What classes are there this morning? Zhou Xian asked. Tang Guo did not go out and studied at home. Zhou Xian did not think that there was anything wrong with it. Instead, he sat next to her and studied with her. Sitting with the person he liked was always a happy thing. Today is martial arts. After Tang Guo said that, Zhou Xian was stunned for a moment. Martial arts. He blinked. Recently, every time he came over, he did not see Tang Guo's martial arts class. Why do you want to learn this? I've been learning. The world is not good. If you encounter any danger, especially girls, if you have some skills, you might be able to save your life at a critical moment. Zhou Xian agreed. That's true. Second young master, do you want to learn together? Facing Tang Guo's half-smile, Zhou Xian was a little timid. He did not like to fight. However, it was not a big deal to learn with the person he liked. On this day, Tang Guo had martial arts classes. Zhou Xian became Tang Guo's practice target. After a day of practice, although his body was very sore, he felt a little sweet in his heart. Because the martial arts teacher said that Tang Guo was already very good, Tang Guo taught him martial arts personally. When he thought about how he could smell his sweetheart's fragrance closer when he was beaten, Zhou Xian felt that it was nothing to be beaten once a day. However, in order not to disappoint his sweetheart, after Zhou Xian returned home, he still secretly practiced in the courtyard. He wanted to receive a compliment in a few days. Zhou Ji knew about Zhou Xian's situation. Second brother, I heard that you've been dancing wildly in the courtyard recently? Zhou Xian retorted, what do you mean by wild demon dance? I'm practicing martial arts. Practicing martial arts? Zhou Ji frowned. Haven't you always disliked these things? When you were young, you were unwilling to learn them even when your master taught you. I'm used to it now. People's hobbies change. Zhou Xian said. He didn't mention the specific reason. Wasn't he afraid of hurting his own elder brother? After all, Miss Tang was someone Big Brother had fallen in love with before. Since he had already taken advantage of her, there was no need for him to pretend to be obedient, lest his big brother be sad. However, under Zhou Ji's questioning, Zhou Xian told the truth. Miss Tang thought that if I learned some martial arts I would be able to protect myself if I ran into trouble. I thought it made sense, so I learned from her. Zhou Ji was very surprised. This woman really made people look at her differently. Because of this, Zhou Ji increasingly felt that they were not fated to be together. Could old madam accept such a granddaughter-in-law? Zhou Ji looked at Zhou Xian with a pitiful expression. Zhou Xian did not feel pitiful. He could see Miss Tang every day eat, drink, talk about his interests and practice martial arts. He was happier than anyone else. Chapter 40-25. Of course, old Madame Zhou knew that Zhou Xian often went to see Tanggua. She knew that Zhou Xian's temper was erratic. When he went abroad to study, she couldn't stop him. She even did some things that made Zhou Xian feel disgusted. If she said anything in front of Zhou Xian again, this grandson of hers would become even more estranged. Therefore, old Madame Zhou didn't say anything to Zhou Xian. She sent someone to invite Tanggua again, intending to warn her to behave. However, this time Tanggua rejected her. This old lady had too much of a good life. She thought that everywhere was her territory and that she had too much control. She had tolerated her the first 2 times because of Tang Yuhui. She wasn't someone who liked to back down. She saw that she was weak and wanted to bully her. When old Madame Zhou heard the servant's words, she frowned and leaned hard on her walking stick. I won't let such a vixen who seduces men enter the Zhou family. Although the Zhou family had a big business, old Madame Zhou couldn't bring herself to ask the Qin family to teach Tanggua a lesson. Tanggua was the star of Xinlisi. Why would the Qin family teach her a lesson just because she didn't like her? She's so arrogant. Old Madame Zhou was angry, but she didn't dare to teach Zhou Xian a lesson. This was because Zhou Xian was the one who would not give her any face among the younger ones in the Zhou family. The reason was that when Zhou Xian wanted to study abroad, the old madam was not willing. So together with Mrs. Zhou, the two of them hid Zhou Xian's ticket and his luggage. This caused Zhou Xian's plan to be delayed for a year. Mrs. Zhou was very regretful about this matter. She even secretly received some new education because she was afraid that Zhou Xian wouldn't accept her in the future. Old Madame Zhou didn't think she was wrong, but she still felt guilty. On the other side, Zhou Xian heard from Zhou Ji that old Madame Zhou had sent someone to invite Tanggua, but was rejected. Old Madame Zhou really cares about me. Zhou Xian's expression didn't look too good. If it weren't for this unreasonable old lady, his plan wouldn't have been delayed for more than a year. This caused him to miss many opportunities. Old Madame Zhou heard some news and has already invited Miss Tang twice, Zhou Ji said honestly. Zhou Xian was furious. What does this have to do with Miss Tang? He was still so unreasonable. If you want to treat someone, shouldn't it be me? I'm the one who's pursuing Miss Tang. Zhou Xian glared at Zhou Ji. You were the one who pursued Miss Tang before. Why didn't she make trouble for you? What does it have to do with Miss Tang? This old lady really bullies the weak and fears the strong. No matter what, she is still your grandmother. Forget it. Zhou Xian snorted. Although she's my grandmother and there's nothing wrong with being filial to her, don't think of treating me like a puppet and living according to her wishes. Back then you hid my ticket, hid my luggage, deducted my pocket money and didn't let you give me a single cent. It was my own idea. Thinking back to that year, Zhou Xian still felt a little sad in his heart for preparing to go abroad. In any case, he was smart enough to be self-sufficient and did not use a single cent from the Zhou family. Although his elder brother and younger sister were willing to help him, in order to prevent the old lady from gossiping, he refused to take a single cent. Didn't she say that if he wanted to leave the country he had to think of a way himself? He had really thought of a way himself. Elder brother, when Miss Tang was scolded by her, didn't you help her? Zhou Xian came back to his senses and looked at him with a questioning gaze. No wonder Miss Tang doesn't like you. You've already dissatisfied her. Chapter 40-26. I expressed my apologies to her. Zhouji was a bit uncomfortable. Now that Zhou Xian mentioned it, it was indeed his fault. Tangwa should not be blamed. Come on. Who doesn't know how to give advice in hindsight? Brother, you'd better focus on your business. Romance is not for you. Zhou Xian did not care about this. If his brother was more powerful, he would have nothing to do with it. The two brothers had different personalities. Okay, let's not talk about this. I have something to do. Zhou Ji stopped Zhou Xian. Are you going to find the old lady? That's why I'm looking for her. It's useless. She'll think it's Miss Tang's fault. Zhou Xian shook his head at Zhou Ji. His brother was not suitable for romance. He was a bit pitiful. Even if he did meet someone he liked with the old lady around, it would be his sister-in-law who would be at a disadvantage. I'll find Miss Tang and ask her to do this in the future. It has nothing to do with her. She's not a member of the Zhou family. She doesn't need to care about the old lady. Zhou Ji looked at Zhou Xian's back in disbelief. He suddenly did not understand his brother. His second brother had a lot of ideas since he was a child. They were very unconventional. Few people could understand them. Zhou Ji started to doubt himself. He had to admit that Miss Tang cared more about his second brother than she did about him. It was said that Miss Tang would invite him to her house for classes after only a few days. Zhou Ji could not help but sigh at the different treatment. It was true that the man loved the woman, but the woman did not. His brother had taken advantage of him. It has nothing to do with you. If the old lady invites you again in the future, don't go. Zhou Xian sat on the sofa casually. It's my business to like you. You did nothing wrong. It's also my business to stay here every day. Zhou Xian was very nervous when he said this. Second master. Yes. Hearing Tangwa calling him, Zhou Xian quickly sat up. He was here. Don't talk to him like that. He would not be able to control himself. And don't look at him like that. He felt that he was going to melt. You like me? Yes. It was the truth. Zhou Xian could not deny it. He had wanted to say it many times, but he did not expect that it would be at this moment. He was not prepared. Tangwa nodded. You like me? Oh. System. Ha. Good. Why did you come so late? Zhou Xian's face fell. Was he being rejected? Weren't they having a lot of fun earlier? Whatever they said, they could talk about it together. Could it be that his family background had lowered his average score? Indeed, with a grandmother like old Madame, people would indeed be dissatisfied. However, this was something that could not be helped. Zhou Xian racked his brains to think of a way to weaken his shortcomings. Old Madame Zhou has already said that I will never marry into the Zhou family in this lifetime. Tangwa paused and said, to be honest, I don't care. I know. Zhou Xian continued, many people can't wait to join the Zhou family, but you won't care. Even though in the eyes of many people the Zhou family was really good. Zhou Xian really wanted to cry this time. Previously, my big brother said that he wanted me to be happy for the rest of my life. He even suggested that I take in a husband. Zhou Xian's eyes lit up. Marry into her family? He could. Soon Zhou Xian's face turned ugly again. Old Madame wouldn't agree. He was afraid that Old Madame would cry and throw a tantrum. If Old Madame died because of this, he wasn't afraid of losing his reputation. He was only afraid of affecting Tangwa. So, second master, you like me? Oh. Tangwa looked at Zhou Xian regretfully. Zhou Xian's entire body turned cold. He felt that he should not come to a conclusion so quickly. He could still think of a way to salvage the situation. Peak. Chapter 40-27. I heard that you've been unhappy recently? Zhou Ji had always cared about Zhou Xian. As for what kind of attitude he had, only he knew. Zhou Xian glanced at Zhou Ji weakly. There was no expression on his brother's face, but he felt that he was gloating. Is it about Miss Tang? Zhou Xian rolled his eyes and said honestly, she said that she likes her. There's no result. Even so, Zhou Xian did not give up. Instead, he had been seriously considering this recently. He could feel that Miss Tang treated him differently from others. It was just a few points. If he followed the crowd and wanted her to compromise, this few points would be reduced to 0. He did not plan to do that. He was thinking about how to save himself and be with his sweetheart. He was not the kind of person who would choose to give up at the slightest obstacle. A rare smile appeared in Zhou Ji's eyes. It disappeared in a flash, but Zhou Xian still saw it. Sure enough, this brother of his was mocking him for being rejected. With a family like ours, it's normal that Miss Tang doesn't like us, Zhou Ji said. Zhou Xian rolled his eyes. Those who didn't know the Zhou family well would think that the Zhou family was poor and destitute. Brother, do you feel that we are a disgrace to a rich family? Zhou Ji said calmly. Miss Tang is a free person. Don't be too sad. What he meant was that it was useless to be sad. They were all rejected. Brother, we are different. Zhou Xian denied. At least I can visit her house and have classes with her every day. She will teach me martial arts personally. Speaking of this, Zhou Xian's eyes lit up. Unknowingly, he had become so special in front of her. This was a kind of special in itself. She had given him special privileges. Zhou Xian seemed to have understood something, but he did not know the details. Brother, I'm going out. Zhou Ji looked at Zhou Xian's back and did not care too much. His brother was stubborn. He would not turn back until he hit a wall. Zhou Xian thought as he ran. If he liked her, why did there have to be a result? Couldn't there be a process? He liked her now, so he would like her well and hold her in the palm of his hand. He felt that this kind of love could last a lifetime. A lifetime was such a long process. Was there a need for any results? She was a free person and could not accept the restrictions of a big house. She could always be a free person as long as he liked her. This way she wouldn't be restrained by anyone and could still be held in the palm of his hand. As for the old madam, she had no right to make trouble for her. She was a talented person and would definitely have a high status in the future. After thinking it through, Zhou Xian didn't say anything to Tanggua. Instead, as usual, he came to see her when he was free. They studied together and she taught him martial arts. Needless to say, under Tanggua's careful guidance, Zhou Xian's skills were already very good. I won't be coming tomorrow. I'm taking my students out to sketch, Zhou Xian said casually. I'll come the day after tomorrow. Tanggua paused for a moment. Calculating the time, Zhou Xian will die tomorrow. She looked at Zhou Xian with a pitiful gaze which made him confused. It hasn't been peaceful outside recently. I heard from Big Brother that many people have their eyes on High City. Tanggua reminded him. Yes, it was very chaotic everywhere. High City was so peaceful, of course many people had their eyes on it and wanted to stir up the water here. Peak. Chapter 40-28. Ever since the merchant ship incident, the big shots of Sea City had been especially united. They all knew that once Sea City fell they would also be in danger. Right now, no matter what grudges they had against each other, they had to unite even if it was temporary. Are you worried about me? Tanggua nodded seriously. Of course. Tanggua's gaze made Zhou Xian's heart beat faster. My skills are already pretty good. With Teacher Tang's careful guidance I can deal with any danger I encounter. Zhou Xian made a joke. Seeing that Tanggua was laughing, he also laughed. Liking her was not that complicated. Being able to see her, talk to her and receive her response was enough. Swords and spears have no eyes. Tanggua still reminded him. She gave Enhua a look and Enhua understood. She turned around and brought over a wooden box. Zhou Xian was a little curious about the small wooden box in front of him. When Tanggua opened the wooden box and saw the black tubular object inside, he was a little surprised. Next to the tubular object was a dagger. Tanggua took out these two items and handed them to Zhou Xian. Take them for self-defense. Do you know how to use them? Tanggua asked. She had found this tube-shaped weapon in the system space. It looked like a normal weapon, but it had actually been modified. There were a total of 50 rounds stored in it. It sounded unbelievable, but how bad could the things that she had collected be? The dagger was not a treasure in her eyes, but it could cut through iron like mud. It was also not a magic weapon. She gave it to Zhou Xian just in case. Zhou Xian was holding the two life-saving items. When he heard Tanggua's words, he swallowed and hurriedly nodded. Yes. He had not planned to bring these things with him, but now that Tanggua had given it to him, he wanted nothing more than to carry these two gifts with him every day. Of course, it was just a thought. He could bring the dagger normally. Be careful. Tangwa had personally taught Zhou Xian moves, so she was confident in his skills. She gave these things to Zhou Xian not because she was not going to the suburbs tomorrow, but because she was afraid that something would happen on the way. It would be even better if Zhou Xian had something to protect himself. Actually, Zhou Xian didn't feel that he would be so unlucky as to encounter any danger when he brought his students out to sketch. However, he still kept the item that Tangwa gave him with him, treating it as a kind of souvenir. When Zhou Xian was surrounded by bandits, his mouth almost turned into an egg. Now was not the time to think too much. Seeing so many students, Zhou Xian took a deep breath and felt the need to escort this group of students away. Weren't these bandits here to kidnap people for money? Therefore, in order to make these students leave, Zhou Xian chose to reveal his identity just like in the storyline. The only difference this time was that Zhou Xian wasn't as afraid. Other than Tangwa's people, no one else knew that he was good at fighting and had a life-saving treasure in his arms. Once the students were sent away, he could slowly plan how to escape with his life. Are you really the second young master of the Zhou family? The bandits didn't believe it. How could they be so lucky? However, after Zhou Xian racked his brains, he finally took out a pocket watch. Inside was a photo of Zhou Ji, Zhou Xian and Zhou Ruoxue, the three siblings. The bandits might not have seen Zhou Xian before, but they had seen Zhou Ji and Zhou Ruoxue, who had always been in the country. This time they believed him. Chapter 40-29. They were indeed after money, so they immediately released the students. They were not afraid that the students would go back to get reinforcements. They were more afraid that the students would go back without saying a word. With second young Master Zhou in their hands, they could ask for a lot of ransom. Just like that, Zhou Xian was brought back to the village. The reason why they did not make a move on the way was that Zhou Xian was afraid that these people would chase after the students. He had to wait at least until tomorrow. By then the students would have returned home and would be safe. In the plot, Zhou Xian also thought the same. He had never thought that he would be killed. The kidnapping of second young Master Zhou had indeed caused a huge uproar in Haiqing. It was said that Zhou Xian was trying to save his students. The group of teenagers came back crying. When the Zhou family found out about this, Mrs. Zhou fainted on the spot. Old Madame Zhou was indeed worried, but she was more distant from Zhou Xian and was calmer. She kept asking Zhou Ji how to save them. Zhou Ji was waiting. The kidnappers were probably after money. Sure enough, not long after, the kidnapper sent a letter asking for an astronomical sum. Zhou Ji agreed without hesitation. Nothing was more important than his brother's life. "Miss, you're taking a risk." Hazy was extremely worried. If she wanted to save them, she could just let him bring a few of his men over. Miss was quite skilled, but she was very delicate. How could she go to a bandit's den? "If you say any more nonsense, I'll send you to Xianles for reassignment." Hazy, shut up. How could protecting others be better than protecting Miss Tang? After being a bodyguard for so many years, he had never been as easy to get along with as Miss Tang. "Let's go." "I'm ready. Second young Master Zhou is my man. Whoever dares to touch him will die." The system had been monitoring Zhou Xian's situation as well as some restless people. It was planning to contact the kidnappers to kill the hostages. Therefore, Tangwa was not afraid that Zhou Xian would be in danger. Not to mention his skills, she had a teleportation talisman. If there was any danger, the system would immediately alert her. She could rush over to save him in an instant. Hazy had no choice but to bring a few men with him to follow Tangwa to save him. And Hua watched as Tangwa left the villa. For a moment she did not know what to say. He muttered to himself at the door. No one knew what he was saying, but he didn't stop him. When Tangwa arrived at the village, the group of people who were looking for the bandits were talking to the head of the bandits. They even gave them 2 boxes of small yellow croakers. In order to kill Zhou Xian, they really spent a lot of money. Tangwa didn't know the person who gave the yellow croakers to her, but she didn't mind leaving someone alive. She could use this as a breakthrough to find out who was behind Zhou Xian. It was better to leave the search to Zhou Ji. After all, Zhou Xian was his younger brother. He had to worry about him. When she arrived, both parties were having a pleasant conversation. When they saw a woman walking in with a few people, they were a little surprised. While they were lifting their weapons, Tangwa raised the weapon in her hand and shot it more than 10 times in a row. All the bandits in the room were killed except for the slightly plump middle-aged man with parted hair who had his wrists pierced. Everything happened too quickly. The middle-aged man's eyes were wide with fear and pain. At some point there was a puddle of water on the ground that looked like a map. Hazy, bandage him. Tie him up and hand him to young Master Zhou. Zhou Ji had already arrived with the money. At this moment he was at the foot of the mountain and had no idea what had happened. Geek. Chapter 40-30. However, the sudden noises made Zhou Ji's expression change. He quickly led his men up the mountain. When Zhou Xian heard the noises, he was also a little nervous. He felt that he could not wait any longer. He took out his weapon and slit the throats of the two guards at the door. Seeing the blood flowing out, he was a little uncomfortable. Although he had never done it personally, he did not know how to clean up such a scene. He felt a little uncomfortable, but he quickly got used to it. He originally thought that there would be a fierce battle. He did not expect to see Tanguo walking towards him when he went out. Today she did not wear a beautiful cheongsam. Instead she wore a medium-sized dress and tied her hair behind her back. There was no makeup on her face. She was still so beautiful. Zhou Xian stood at the door and watched Tanguo walk towards him. He was a little stunned. What was this? He touched his face. Actually, this was considered a hero saving a beauty, right? Why are you in a daze? Go. Tanguo saw the blood on Zhou Xian's dagger and the two corpses at the door. Is this your first time killing someone? Zhou Xian nodded in a daze as if he was scared silly. However, he was not scared silly. He just did not react. His sweetheart actually risked her life to save him. He was stunned. Then he was very touched. Zhou Xian looked at Tanguo. He was glued to her and could not move his eyes away from her. Xiaoguo, I like you. Zhou Xian did not know where his courage came from. Whether there is a result or not, I like you. His eyes were filled with her. I don't expect any result. As long as you don't reject me, it's fine as long as we are the same as before. Of course, it would be better if we could be closer. Hey Z. He seemed to have seen a big dog. You mean that you want to stay by my side even without a status? Tanguo was deep in thought. She lifted Zhou Xian's chin with her fingers and looked at him carefully. Right? Zhou Xian quickly nodded. This was a rare opportunity. Of course, he had to express his attitude immediately. When Zhou Ji arrived with his men, this was the scene that greeted him. A woman dressed handsomely. She was not as tall as his brother, but she stretched out her index finger to lift his brother's chin. It was as if she was flirting with a virgin. Zhou Ji felt that something was beyond his understanding. Along the way he only found the corpses of the bandits lying on the ground. These bandits were wicked beyond redemption. Many people couldn't do anything to them. But now their entire clan had been annihilated. Previously he was still worried about whether Zhou Xian would be all right and who had done all this. What surprised him even more was that Tanguo had come. Not only did they come, those people seemed to have been killed by the people she had brought with her. He was a little confused. Was she really a simple singer? All right, I'll allow you to stay by my side. Zhou Xian smiled happily and secretly wiped his sweat. It wasn't easy. Thinking of the dagger that Tanguo gave him, he quickly wiped it clean and put it away. This was a treasure given to him by his sweetheart. Zhou Ji was at a loss for words. Then he saw that Zhou Xian was actually grabbing Tanguo's hand, which made him feel bad. This brat really let him succeed. Look at those eyes. Isn't that what Tang Yuhui said? Obedient and obedient? Tang Yuhui, who had followed along, almost spat out a mouthful of blood. What did he see? Second young Master Zhou was like a dog in front of his eldest sister. Why did he have to describe it like that? It didn't seem good. Tang Yuhui was a little worried. This was second young Master Zhou. Up. Chapter 40-31. Master, there's still one alive. When I came, he was making a deal with the bandit leader to buy Zhou Xian's life, Tanguo said to Zhou Ji. Zhou Ji's face darkened. Got it. Leave this to me. That's what I thought too. Tanguo put away her weapon and smiled. Then I'll leave with second master first. I'll leave this to you. Tang Yuhui knew that Tanguo practiced martial arts with her gun, but he was still a little frightened by this result. In fact, they all felt that the people here should have been dealt with by He Zi and the others. They did not suspect Tanguo. He was still busy now, so he could only ask after he was done. Xiaoguo, are you very worried about me? Is that why you came? Yes. I knew that you have me in your heart. Tanguo rolled her eyes. Why was this guy so talkative? If she had known, she would have come later. Wasn't everything fine now? I will work hard to practice martial arts and protect you in the future, Zhou Xian said. He felt that he was too weak today. If he had escaped earlier, Tang Guo would not have taken the risk to save him. He silently reflected on himself. He felt more and more that this world was not peaceful. Zhou Xian's kidnapping incident was over without any mishap. The fact that Tang Guo brought people to save Zhou Xian was not hidden. The outsiders only thought that she brought bodyguards and did not do it herself. However, Zhou Ji, who interrogated the middle-aged man with parted hair, found out that the people in the room were killed by Tang Guo. However, he did not publicize this matter. After Tang Yuhui found out, he hurriedly went to look for Tang Guo. Sister, do you like Zhou Xian? Yes. Tang Yuhui seemed to understand something. No wonder. I heard that your marksmanship is very good, but you didn't do it. This time you went up because of Zhou Xian, right? Otherwise, he could not imagine why a woman would go to this extent. He is second master, Tang Yuhui said. But he has a good personality. He is wholeheartedly thinking of sister. He can make up for the Zhou family's weakness. Big brother, don't worry. The world is in chaos. Even if Sea City is temporarily peaceful, it will still be chaotic. There are some things that you have to face sooner or later. Tang Yuhui nodded. That's right. That's why eldest sister didn't object to you learning martial arts and learning how to snatch. However, he didn't expect that eldest sister's first move would be for Zhou Xian. That kid was really lucky. Sea City was getting more and more restless. No one knew how long this peace would last. He couldn't do anything on his own, so he could only remind his sister to protect herself. That Zhou Xian was wholeheartedly devoted to eldest sister. He had seen it, so he didn't object. Eldest sister needed someone who only cared about her to take care of her. Since then, Zhou Xian came more frequently. Old Madame Zhou didn't say anything after knowing that Tang Guo went to save Zhou Xian. Even if she agreed, she didn't dare to oppose Tang Guo entering the Zhou family. If she dared to object, the saliva outside would drown her. It wasn't that she didn't see that the Zhou family was very supportive of the two of them. They were holding back their anger in their hearts. The two young masters of the Zhou family had avoided the deadlock. Only Zhou Ruoxue was left. Tang Guo had been asking the system to help monitor Zhou Ruoxue's situation. She was studying at school and didn't seem to be in any danger at the moment. However, she still mentioned it to Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian understood the main point. Not long after, there were many more bodyguards around Zhou Ruoxue. After dealing with this matter, Tang Guo came back to her senses and looked at the situation at the Tang family's side. Tang Chuanxiang and Wu Feng would put on all kinds of shows every day. The two of them would curse each other. Tang Chuanxiang, who didn't have a palm, was no longer Wu Feng's opponent. When the two of them fought, Wu Feng basically had the upper hand. However, Wu Feng wasn't very happy about it. The money in her hands was getting less and less. Tang Yuxing and Tang Yushu had both finished their studies. Tang Yushu was currently working at a small newspaper, writing small articles and living a good life. Tang Yuxing couldn't do it. Not only had his temper become eccentric, but he hadn't sold a single painting so far. He also wasn't willing to lower himself to find a job. There was also Tang Xi's tuition fee, which was also a large sum of money. Wu Feng's heart was bleeding. What Wu Feng couldn't stand even more was that Tang Xi was actually with a poor hooligan. Peak. Chapter 40-32. Money, money, money. All you think about is money. So what if your family background isn't good? Isn't our family ordinary too? Mom, I don't understand why you dislike Zhouguan so much. Every time they returned home, Wu Feng would nag at Tang Xi, telling her not to interact with Zhouguan. She even gave many examples. With Zhouguan's current situation, it was impossible for him to give her happiness. This rascal only knew how to fool around. Not only did he not learn well, he also did not have the ability to support the family. He only knew how to cause trouble. But no matter what Wu Feng said, Tang Xi would not listen. In her opinion, Zhouguan was good. She was not the kind of person who would curry favor with the rich and powerful. How could she dislike Zhouguan because of his family background? For someone like her mother, she probably did not know what true love was at all. That was right. With someone like her father who only knew how to gamble all day, it was no wonder that her mother would pick on Zhouguan. Her mother did not know that Zhouguan had already helped her out many times. Previously, when Haiqing was in chaos, she was almost injured. Fortunately, Zhouguan appeared to help her. She did not want her feelings to be blinded by greed. Instead, she hoped that this pure feeling could last a lifetime. Mom, don't worry about this matter. Tang Si recalled the days she spent with Zhou Guan. Every day after school, Zhou Guan would sell roasted sweet potatoes and wait for her at the school gate. In the middle of winter, eating hot roasted sweet potatoes together was the happiest day in her life. Sisi, believe me. You won't have. That's enough, Mom. This is old-fashioned thinking. In the past it was about matching families. Now that we are welcoming a new era, we need to break the old rules of the past. Tang Si did not want to eat anymore. She put down her bowl and chopsticks. Mom, eat by yourself. You don't have to persuade me anymore. I think Zhou Guan is very good. I'm different from you. I know what I want. Can you stop saying those things? Sisi, Mom, really? Mom, you can't use your failed marriage to deny that Zhou Guan and I will not be happy in the future. We are really different. You and Dad got married through a matchmaker. Zhou Guan and I got to know each other freely. We are still young and have time to get to know each other. When we get used to each other, we will definitely be happy together in the future. Her daughter's stubbornness made Wu Feng feel stifled in her heart, but she didn't know what to say. Because no matter what she said, Tang Si always had a set of reasons, and the more she talked, the more she was led into it. After Tang Si left, Wu Feng cursed in a low voice. These little ones in the family were really troublesome. He was so angry. When Tang Yushu and his brother returned, Wu Feng also mentioned this matter, hoping that the two of them could persuade Tang Si. Mom, you don't have to worry about these things. Since Sisi likes him, she must have already thought about it. Sisi was right. Old ideas were meant to be broken. Not only should we not stop her, but we should also encourage her to make a choice. Tang Yushu continued, Sisi's pursuit of true love is indeed worthy of being encouraged. Who knows how many people were harmed by the blind and mute marriages of the old era. Tang Yuxing didn't say anything. Ever since he finished his studies, he hadn't sold many paintings. Now he rarely spoke at home. You guys are really trying to piss me off. At this moment, Wu Feng had a feeling that the whole world did not understand her. These 3 children were her pride. Why did they not listen to her when they grew up? Chapter 40-33. Mom, it's not that we're trying to make you angry, it's just that you haven't thought things through. As a woman of the new era, Sisi is pursuing her own happiness. You're stopping her here and there. Aren't you restricting Sisi's freedom? Wu Feng didn't know how to respond to Feng Bo and Tang Yoshu's words. She had never been to school and was illiterate, so she couldn't win against them. However, she had her own set of reasons. She said hatefully that Zhou Guan is just a hooligan. He has nothing at home. How can he give Sisi happiness? Mom, that's where you're wrong. Sisi is pursuing her own happiness. Happiness should be in her own hands. Why should she rely on others to give it to her? Tang Yushu felt that Wu Feng's words were too outdated. It was a new era and there were many opportunities. There were many women who relied on their talents to make a living. Why should they rely on a man to obtain happiness? At first his words sounded right. However, after thinking about it carefully, there were many conditions to obtain such happiness. There was nothing wrong with pursuing happiness first, but Tang Si didn't have these conditions at all. She even asked her family for money for her tuition fees and meals. What right did she have to rely on others to pursue happiness? Wu Feng was furious that her son couldn't persuade her to no avail. Tang Yushu thought that he had convinced Wu Feng because he was now working at a newspaper company and could be considered to be self-supporting. He was living a good life and even his back was worth it. Compared to the past, the words he used when writing critical articles were sharper. Although Wu Feng was angered by his words, she didn't argue with Tang Yushu because she was very proud of Tang Yoshu's achievements. She couldn't let them be estranged just because of Tang Si's rebellion. It was worth mentioning that after Tang Yushu started working at a newspaper company, he loved to write articles that criticized entertainers. As long as someone wrote an article that criticized entertainers, he would use it. In addition, when he wrote his own articles, he would also include some personal information. Every word he wrote was an allusion to Tanghua. He also used a pen name to publish his articles. He wasn't famous and few people paid attention to him. Almost no one knew that his real identity was that he was Tanghua's brother. In particular, every time something happened in various places, Tang Yushu would write an article to scold the performers. Basically, It revolved around the central idea of Shang women don't know the sorrow of their country's destruction, and still sing from afar. There were many scholars in this era who hated entertainers. Every time such an article was published, all the singers and entertainers in Haiqing would be dragged back to flog their corpses. Tangwa didn't care much about these things. The more these people scolded her, the more swollen her face would be in the future. She couldn't wait for Tang Yushu to name her and scold her to death. Then the backlash would be even worse in a few years. Though the other singers and actresses were particularly eager to refute the articles, some of the scholars knew the worst of them. Once they bit onto your weak point, they would not let it go. They would not be satisfied until they scolded your 18 generations of ancestors. Therefore, the singers and actresses could only swallow their anger and not say anything. Who wanted the era to be chaotic? Didn't everyone want to live a stable life in this era? In their hearts, they were all hoping for a good life. If they had a choice, who would want to sing every day, sell their bodies and earn a living? Everyone wanted to be a rich young lady. Peak. Chapter 40-34. The reality was that everyone's life was different. No matter what happened since they came to this world, they had to find a way to survive. Good or bad, they had to live. They didn't know what moral integrity was. They only knew that if they didn't work, they wouldn't earn money. If they didn't earn money, they would starve and have no clothes to wear. They would sleep in the open and never know when they would freeze to death on the streets. Dear host, Tangxi has met Zhou Guan. They confessed to each other after secretly developing feelings for each other. After Wu Feng found out, she nagged Tangxi every day, but Tangxi didn't listen. The system reported to Tanghua about the recent happenings in the Tang family. Wu Feng went to Tang Yushu and his brother to persuade her. Tang Yushu gave a long speech, agreeing with Tangxi's pursuit of his own happiness. Wu Feng almost died from anger. When it said this, the system seemed to be gloating. This family of blood-sucking worms. Without anyone to cover for them, all the bad things would slowly be exposed. Yeah, I know. How's Tang Yushu? Tang Yuxing. He's been selling paintings for almost a year. He's only sold a few paintings. With his noble appearance, not many people would buy them. Even if there were, they would be chased away by him. Does he really think he's a pearl covered in dust? It seems that I can move on to the next step. Tanghua smiled. The teachers all said that my standards have surpassed theirs. If this happened to anyone in the real world, even a genius, it would be impossible. However, these skills were all learned by Tanghua. She would slowly show them. Even if the teachers were shocked, they had watched Tanghua grow up and couldn't say anything. They could only blame it on her talent. As for Tangxi, Tanghua didn't care about this matter. Tang Yushu didn't care. As for Tang Yushu, she wasn't in a hurry. Once her pen name was exposed, that kid's face would be swollen like a pig's head. Now she was going to use other methods to hit those scholars who were not clear-headed. Who should she beat first? Tanghua held her chin and pondered silently. When Zhou Xian came over, he saw the picture of a beauty holding her chin and pondering. He didn't come over to disturb her. Instead, he had Enhua bring over a drawing board and began to seriously paint this beautiful scene. Tanghua had long noticed Zhou Xian's arrival. Seeing Zhou Xian's thoughts, she didn't move. However, she no longer pondered. Instead, she looked up at Zhou Xian and smiled at him. Zhou Xian almost dropped the paintbrush in his hand. His little heart was beating very fast. He originally thought that the picture of a beauty in deep thought was beautiful, but now he felt that his previous understanding was a little wrong. The picture of a beauty looking up and smiling, especially when she was smiling at him, was even more beautiful. Draw, I must draw. This was the image of Xiaogua smiling at him. It was so precious that he had to record it and hang it in his room to look at it every day. The morning passed just like that. Zhou Xian looked at the beauty on the drawing board and then at Tanghua, who was drinking tea. His fingers itched again. He felt that as long as she was there, it would be a beautiful picture. In the end, Zhou Xian abandoned the drawing board and sat beside Tanghua to refill her tea. You're not painting anymore? I'm not painting anymore. The image in the picture isn't even 1% of yours. I'm not talented enough. I can't draw your beauty. Tanghua rolled her eyes at Zhou Xian. Second young Master Zhou, who did you learn to be so glib? You're like a playboy. Only playboys like you. Peak. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.